just were attached to an email, but no sense of who wrote it, when, and etc. That's why I'm asking that.
Okay, I can do that.
If you don't have it, you don't have it. But I just want to make sure
I
that
do have it.
we see it in context.
Gonna share my screen again. Mr. Hallett, do you recognize this email?
Yes, I resent it to you. I resent it to you previously.
And was this email, the email that was sent to me, was that sent to you from Mr. Zach Brown?
Yes, he resent it to me.
And it looks to me like it previously had been sent to you on April 8th, 2022.
Correct.
Saying, see email attached from property manager of 1919 Green.
Yep.
And below, there's an email from a Maurice from a T. Dini to Zach at a PPD Concepts. Do you know
Yes,
who T. Dini is?
I believe T. Dini was one of the owners of the property, and then Ryan Robinson, I believe, was the property manager.
Just,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Ms. Clearstream, can you forward this email to me since this is the first time I'm looking at this document?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll send it to you right now.
Thank you.
So, the email below from Ryan Robinson, does that look like the email and the prior picture that we had looked at?
It does.
And is the date on this email December 7th, 2021?
It is.
And does that say the workers next door have been slamming pretty hard into the wall attached to our apartment, and this morning caused this large crack in the wall down the front of, in the wall going down the front of the wall?
Yes.
And had Point Builders been aware of this prior to March 11th, 2022?
We had not.
Once again, before starting work on the project, did you observe 1919 Green?
From the exterior, yes. Nothing in terms of, I mean, it's an older building. I usually try to look for these types of things, knowing that, you know, when you're working in an older infrastructure type neighborhoods, that things, even with the best intentions, can happen. But nothing was alarming to me at this point. I hadn't noticed any exterior cracking. Like I said, we also had some conversations in passing with neighbors and tenants, and nothing was elevated to this point of like, hey, you know, this building had an issue before, or hey, you know, I've had a window that won't close, or a door that won't close, or a big crack in this inside my unit. None of that was brought up to our attention. So I'd only performed exterior inspections, and no bells were rung prior to the day that we're discussing.
Mr. Hallett, I'm going to refer you to some pictures that you had forwarded to me, which we're going to mark as the Pelham Exhibit 6.
Okay.
As you're preparing to do that, Ms. Trustoni, how much more do you propose to do? Because I want to get a sense of timing here.
Of course, Chairman. I'm actually just going to go over this exhibit with Mr. Hallett, and then I'm going to be finished with my directive him.
Okay, thank you. Just before you do that, it's a general statement that if we are not at the end or near the end in the next 15 and 20 minutes, we're going to have to continue this.
Understood. I'll try to be as quick as possible.
And we'll have to reschedule.
Understood. Mr. Hallett, did you send these pictures to me earlier?
I did.
And these pictures, who were they taken by?
I'm just
They were taken by my staff. At this point, with the imminent danger, the owner of 1919 Green ordered WM Proud Masonry to do a basically restoration of that party wall. What my team had wanted to note was they were taking pictures of existing conditions as it relates to the building, in case if there was an issue or a civil suit that would pop up down the line.
I'm sorry, so what was the date these photos were taken?
That's my next question.
Oh, sorry.
These were
And what's
taken
the
in
address of the image? What's the address of the image?
These are 1919 Green, Mr. Chairman. These
Okay.
pictures, I believe, were taken on May 22nd or 21st of 2022. So several months after the March 10th.
And what did these pictures reveal to you?
What they revealed to me is
Mr. Chair, there is no location information. We could be looking at something in California.
Well,
Mr.
that's
Howard
not-
is testifying that this is,
There's no information.
Yeah,
that
there's nothing on
says-
the image. You're right, but Mr. Hallett, who is testifying, is putting that on the record because his staff took the photos.
Mhm.
So we can judge that for what it's worth.
Yeah. Mrs. Klishtorny, if you scroll to the one photo that shows the side parcel, we can reference some of the previous photos. Yeah, right there. Go back where it shows the painted wall.
here?
Next one up.
I mean, again, if I could just even get an offer of proof as to what these pictures are trying to show.
Well, I'm about to ask him the question.
Yeah.
So
All right.
what
But
is,
I'm objecting to relevance because at this point, it seems very clear this has nothing to do with what happened on March 10th.
it's gonna be literally my last question. I think,
So-
I would appreciate, everyone's patience.
That was a request for offer of proof. Just indicate.
It's
what
okay.
it-
I'll if it's the last question, I withdraw.
I appreciate it. So what does this indicate to you, Mr. Howard?
What this indicates to me is a couple instances, where we're, one of the violations that was referenced is failure to inspect and note. But one of these things that these pictures note is the deterioration of the structure that was interior of the building and would have been impossible for us to note from any form of visual inspection from the exterior of the building or the interior of the building. What you're seeing is existing floor joists that are not only rotted, but spaced incorrectly. You have pictures of plumbing stacks that are visibly and obviously cracked interior of the building. So like the one photo referenced previously as one of the city's dockets was water damage. There's two photos here of two cracked plumbing stacks in the building. So I think what we're trying to note here is that this building had some hidden issues that I think came to light, obviously and unfortunately.
I have no further questions for Mr. Howard, and on that note, I would like to move Appellant's exhibits 1 through 6 into the record.
So moved. Ms. Curley, you have any cross-examination?
I have a question, if I may. No, I withdraw that. I Ms. Curley, do you have questions?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
I want Ms. Curley, I want Ms. Curley to do her cross, then the board can jump in. We're pressed for time, and we're going to reschedule this at 8:45. So I want this to be substantially complete before we do that. Okay, so I'd like the lawyers to get their questions in, then the board can join if we need to for clarification. Thank you. Ms. Curley?
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Just very briefly, in the packet that your attorney submitted, there was no field inspection for March 10th, 2022, correct? No indication that a special inspector was on site.
So from my recollection, Ms. Curley, the special inspectors were on their way. The work had not commenced yet. So with the stop work order, that work was paused. We then did the temp bracing, and then we were allowed to, once the temp bracing was up, complete the special inspections in conformance with the contract documents and special inspection documents.
Okay. And you also indicated that you saw the pictures that I put up of the exterior of the property with all the cracks, and you had indicated that you had done an exterior inspection of the property, correct?
Yes.
And you also, hired Geostructures to be the special inspector and to, investigate the property and to see it.
Technically, we did not hire.
You're right. Right. You
Geostructures.
coordinated. Let me
yeah.
strike that.
So-
You coordinated with Geostructures to evaluate the exterior of the property.
That would have been a responsibility of 1921 Green Street, LLC. Our obligation with Geostructures was to coordinate for the special inspection portions, which we had done for the.
And neither they nor you, notified the department of any of the cracks that you saw on the exterior of 1919.
We did not see any of those until the day in question.
Okay. All right, I actually don't have anything else.
Okay, Ms. Castoria, do you have more witnesses? Where we
I
are?
do, very
Mr.
briefly.
Chair, can I ask my questions now?
Just one moment. Do you have more witnesses, Ms. Castoria?
One more witness, one very brief witness.
Okay, Mr. Washington?
Excuse me, Ms. Helen, did anyone knock on the next door to find out whether there was any problems with the neighbors? Since you are doing construction outside, you are banging and banging, did anybody happen to knock on the door and say, are there any problems?
Are you addressing me, sir?
Yes, sir.
To my knowledge, I believe that we did, but I did not personally do that. But I do, like I said, there was communication with tenants while we were performing underpinning work, and nothing was brought to our attention, sir.
All right, so when you just testified that y'all was talking to neighbors, that you was running into people walking up and down the street. But
Correct.
see, what I want to know is, did you talk to anyone who lived there? Did you knock on the door, or if you had one of your employees knock on the door to find out whether there was any problem? And if you did, what was that employee's name?
Like I had mentioned, Zachary Brown and Greg Costello were the two that were directly on a day-to-day basis operating. I did not personally knock on any doors. Typically, what I've done is if we're noticing visual items on the exterior, we then would proceed to knock on the door. Now, in regarding,
So when Mr. Brown knocked on the door and they said, no, we have a crack on the wall, what did you
He never
do?
knocked on the door. There was
Oh,
never
Mr.
testimony
Brown
that he
never
knocked on the door.
So wait a minute, are you testifying now?
no,
Wait a minute. Hold on a minute. What I would like Mr. Hallett to do is complete your answer to Mr.
Yes.
Washington's question.
okay.
Yes.
Washington, we will then.
No problem, sir. I mean, it's a fair question. I personally did not knock on the door because I did not notice any visual defects at the time. Now, what I mean by neighbors and stuff, sir, was that there were neighbors coming in and out of the building to walk their dog, go to their car, grab a coffee or something. And there was casual conversations that had occurred with my staff, but nothing was brought to the attention. So I can't
Okay.
explicitly say that one of the affected units had a direct conversation with my employees. But I know that we did have numerous conversations with neighbors and related parties as it relates to 1919 and 1921, sir.
Okay, who is Campus Enterprise?
They are the foundation and underpinning subcontractor, sir.
Pardon me?
The foundation and underpinning subcontractor, Mr.
And you have a report from them of what their findings was?
That's the next witness, Mr. Washington.
That's the fellow in the upper right hand. I think he's being called by her to testify. So let's hear from
Okay, I have one more question. Who is Maurice Cornelius?
I believe he is the property manager for the ownership company of 1919 Green, sir.
But did you have any conversation with him?
Zachary did, and that's where we got the emails from.
And Zachary is the one who told you that Mr. Maurice Cornelius said, here's the issues we have in the house?
Yes, and that was given to my team on and around the date in question, not prior to.
So here's a question for you.
Sure.
So do you admit to the violations that was submitted by the city?
Objection.
I can ask.
Okay.
I can ask.
I'm
Okay,
gonna-
They appealed the violations. Of course he doesn't admit to it.
Yeah,
Okay,
we're
let's do
gonna-
this.
we're getting a little far afield.
Please don't answer, Mr.
Order.
I'm sorry.
Order. We're going to complete this hearing in the next 10 minutes or so. What I will have asked now, Mr. Washington, I'm going to ask Ms. Thorney to call her next witness so we can hear from him. And then if we have any clarifying questions, we can ask those. But for the moment, I want to move on. Let's do that. Because the issue is whether they had the special inspector on site on the 10th is when the, I really don't want to get sidetracked whether there was damage done, because that's not part of the
Wait, so
violation.
Mr. Chair, what I want to do, I want to withdraw the question.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Oh, would that be fine?
Yeah, sure, you can strike that question, sure.
And
But let's
Ms.
move on. though, Ms.
Stoney,
Castleton.
is there an offer of proof as to what Mr. Oh gosh, sorry, Texera is going to testify to, just to kind of expedite it?
Yes, he's going to testify that there was no underpinning being performed on March 10th.
Okay, we want to hear that.
Thank you,
Please call.
Chairman. Mr. Texera, thank you so much for your patience. Can you please state your full name for the record?
Billy Texera.
Mr. Texera, what is your position with Compass Enterprises?
I'm the general manager of Campus Enterprises.
And with Campus Enterprises, the foundation subcontractor on the 1921 Green Project?
Correct.
Did you supervise this project?
So I have several projects going on at the same time. So we have different teams. So we oversee the projects and we supervise, and we have other personnel that supervises each individual project.
As a matter of course, do you require that a special inspector be present during underpinning?
We do.
Do you ever perform underpinning without the presence of a special inspector?
We do not.
On March 10th, 2022, the date in question, was any underpinning being performed at 1921 Green?
Not at that time.
Miss Curley had presented as her exhibits a number of pictures of the site on March 10th, which showed equipment. Why was that equipment there?
Well, that equipment is there because we need that equipment to perform underpinning, to perform excavations. Is there to facilitate us to do our work.
What exactly was Compass Enterprises doing at the site on March 10th,
Okay.
2022?
Okay, we were prepping the last section of C, the corner section of C, which the C's had already been done, and it shows clearly on those pictures. We're prepping the last section to then perform the underpinning.
And was underpinning actually performed on March 10th?
No.
I have no further questions.
Okay, Ms. Curley, you have any cross?
Briefly, Mr. Texera, did Campos, I'm sorry, what is it? Campos Enterprises, did they also receive a violation notice for underpinning being performed at this property on March 10th without a special inspector?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. There we go. It's Campus Enterprises LLC. That's you, correct?
Yes.
And scrolling down, we see a violation for violation observed on 3/10/2022 at 1921 Green Street. Failure to protect adjacent property for not having a special inspector, which is included in the code language. Failure to special inspector not being on site on 3/10/2022. And there was also a violation observed on March 17th for OSHA workers, or for workers appearing without their OSHA certificate. Is that correct? Did I read that correctly?
You did read that correct.
Okay. And you did not appeal those violations, correct?
We're not aware of those violations.
Okay. And you said you were digging, the workers were digging a hole on March 10th, 2022?
No.
Can
The
you-
equipment was there to be able to dig the holes.
Okay, and so your testimony today is that no work was being done at all?
At that time, that's correct.
Okay.
Miss Curley, Mrs. Texera, are you using the term at that time to mean at that moment in time or during that full work?
At that moment in time.
Okay,
I don't really have anything else.
okay.
I just
Thank-
had very brief redirect.
Yes, please.
The chairman asked you whether underpinning was performed at that moment in time. Were you referring to all of the day, March 10th, 2022?
Yes,
And Ms. Curley had also asked you questions about a notice of violation. Had you ever seen that before?
I have not.
Was Compost Enterprises served with that violation, to your
Not
knowledge?
that not that I am aware of.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Okay, thank you. One final follow-up for either Mr. Hallett or Ms. Texera. I think one of them indicated that the special inspector was on his way to that location.
Yes.
Okay, and what was he expected to observe?
He was going to be there for the start and the duration of underpinning that last section
Okay.
C, once he arrived at site, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. I will invite the council, Ms. Pastorni and then Ms. Curley to offer any final argument they may have, and then we will call the vote on this matter.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to be very brief because I know it's been a long day for all of us, not least of which the board. I think the evidence is very clear. The city's witness never observed underpinning being performed. Yes, the equipment was there, but it was there in preparation of performing underpinning when geostructures would arrive, which it did not arrive, or it would have arrived, but then L&I came and put a stop work order on the scene. But there's been no evidence of record that any underpinning was performed on March 10th, 2022. And that is the only day that's in question, March 10th, 2022. My client, Point Builders Design Concepts, did everything to ensure that geostructures was on site at all times during underpinning. And once again, there's no evidence of record that any underpinning was performed without the special inspector being present. I apologize. It's been a long day. Mr. Chiaredo, Inspector Chiaredo, testified that he was never on site on March 10th himself. And once again, there's no evidence that underpinning was actually performed on March 10th, 2022.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hill?
Did she say Carrito or Figueroa?
I'm talking about the inspector, Chiaredo, the L&I inspector, Chiaredo. And also, additionally, one more thing before I complete my closing argument. My client testified that he observed the neighboring property, 1919 Green. He did not observe any defects. And Point Builders only found out about any issues with the property on March 10th, 2022, after having a conversation with the Department of Licenses and Inspections. Furthermore, the city has stipulated that it was in fact the demolition contractor who was not hired by my client, but who was hired by the property owner, that in fact damaged the property at 1919 Green, and the RLC contractors had its license suspended for 20 months as a result of that violation, and it's still in suspension status.
Okay, thank you.
My clients
Ms. Custodian, I'd like you to wrap it up so we can get you.
Thank you.
Custodian.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll defer to Ms. Curley now.
Thank you.
So just initially, as a very clear clarification, the city did not stipulate that RLC, or I think I said RCL, caused any of the damage. We're not going to weigh in on that. That's not the purpose of today's hearing. I specifically specified that the license was suspended for 20 months for a variety of behavior, besides just this property, just so that clarification is clear for the record. I think it's pretty clear from the testimony of Inspector Figueredo, who is a managing inspector for audits and investigations, who reviews these case files routinely and the work of the city's contractors, that a stop work order was issued on March 10th. That was issued because underpinning was being performed. without a special inspector on site. I think it's clear from the photographs that underpinning was being performed. You know, particularly I want to point to the board, the large hole that was present in the side of the building that just doesn't add up with no work being performed, coupled with a stop work order being issued, which wouldn't be issued if there was no work being performed. I do think the testimony of Mr. Texera from Campos Enterprises should just not be found credible at this point, given that they received their own violations, notwithstanding the violation he personally received for working without his OSHA certification that was cited on the notice I shared. Lastly, and I'm, you know, mistakes happen, and I don't think it's any sort of critique, but I think it's clear from the photos that the exterior cracks along this building should have given, you know, pause about the work that was being done. If there were that many cracks that were visually apparent to L&I, to the board when I showed those photos, that would certainly prompt a contractor to call the department or otherwise, you know, protect that structure and take other action. Based on that, I do think that the 3 violations cited in this violation notice should be affirmed. And that is all I have.
I just
Thank you
have
very
some
much.
brief follow-up, and I know it's
Oh,
almost.
wait. No. We asked for closing argument. That's it. We weren't gonna do that. Okay? Thank you. We're going to now move to, unless someone feels otherwise, we're going to move directly to calling the vote on this matter. Just one moment. We call the vote on HA-2022-004182 1921 Green Street, Point Builders Design Concepts LLC. City affirmed.
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 Thank you. The vote is city affirmed. The appeal has been lost. Thank you very much for your participation. And of course, you have the right to appeal our decisions. And Ms. Clastorni, I'm sure you know how to do that, should you choose to do that. Thank you very much for your participation and your patience in this process.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Chairman.
evening.
And
Have a good
thank you,
evening.
board. I know you guys are volunteers on behalf of the law department, and I'm sure Ms. Claire Storney, we do want to thank you. I know this was a really long night, so thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
I got whispering and shit.